This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, good morning everyone. Today we are going to discuss about Balsamic. As you know, Balsamic is a kind of tool which is available on cloud, so which is majorly useful for creating mockups and wireframes and all everything. So as a part of Balsamic, what is that are we going to develop? So whatever the developments are we going to do is what comes under Balsamic. Hi, today we are going to discuss about Balsamic. As you know, Balsamic is a kind of tool which is widely used across industries to create wireframes, mockups, all that. So this Balsamic is a tool which is used especially for the people who are into business analysis, because business analyst people major focus is to understand requirements and providing solutions accordingly. In view of it, people has to understand what Balsamic is all about. So why these wireframes and mockups and all everything were important to design diagrams, all that, the kind of visualization of requirements and all everything we have to show it. That's the reason why it is always important for us. There are different tools are available online. Like we prepare UML diagrams and all using rational rows, Microsoft Visio, all that, as well as flowcharts, everything. The same way, Balsamic is a kind of tool which is available across industries to develop any kind of application. What is that we require, all that stuff. So this is generally a tool which is available on cloud environment, wherein trial version is available with us so that we can use it whenever we are needed. Now here you can see there are different options. Let me explain you about the options first. Then I'll get into the next one. So in this Balsamic, the very first thing is that if you want to create any kind of project here, so here you have an option called for projects. At the same time, if you want to add any kind of people to the existing ones, wherein if you want to invite your people, for example, when you are working as a business analyst, if you want to invite your people to be a part of this team, right? So because whatever the wireframes and mockups we have created so far, if people wants to see all these things and all this, invite people is something essentially available to them, so that we can add as many people as you want. You can send them an invite to them, so that whatever the required invitation we have sent, so people will see that. So based upon the invitation, so those people will also be a part of the team, so that whatever the work are we going to do, everything will be taken care of by them. That's what generally people were. So irrespective of the kind of project we are developing, adding people and all everything is also something essentially important, so that people who are involving in this can see this well in advance. At the same time, if there are any kind of settings to be made in reference to the project itself is concerned, if you want to create any kind of settings in reference to that, that settings can be done. But as far as the development, as far as the creating of creating of wireframes and mockups, of course, there is no requirement for the settings which is that we want to see. So that is not something essentially required here. Now, here are the options where it is available here. You can create a first project here. At the same time, once we have created a project, where we have an option where I'm going to show you what are the different wireframes and mockups and all everything you can see. For example, if you are creating some alert box on the page, at the same time, or else if you want to create any kind of progress bars, like progress bars or search boxes and all everything, each and every box is available here. Even this is for whatever you can see here is an Android. Here you have an option called all, right? So if you are clicking in all, so whatever the required options do you require on the specific page and all, everything you can see, right? Either it could be calendar, either it could be callouts, or it could be bar charts, or it could be pie charts, right? So whatever the charts do we require, everything can be seen here. So otherwise, if you want to develop an application according to the requirements what we have, for example, Android is what generally we are working on. So Android is a kind of tool which is something we are working on here. So we have an option here where we have an option for Android. Android is one thing which is there. So even for example, if you are developing any kind of Android applications or something like, so this option can be seen. At the same time, if you want to create any kind of buttons and all everything. For example, if there is a page you are creating, there are some buttons which you have to mention so far, right? So whatever the buttons you require, so those buttons can be prepared. At the same time, for example, if you want to create any kind of containers, right? So for example, either it is for the phone or for the iPad, or if you are creating any tab bars and all everything, these containers are used for that purpose. At the same time, if you want to create any kind of forms, right? So for example, especially being a business analyst, we may require to create a login page. So whenever we want to create a login page, there are different forms which are essentially important to perform it. Those forms can also be prepared here accordingly. At the same time, if you want to mention any kind of icons or something like, or else if you want to create any kind of layouts in reference to the project itself, these layouts can be prepared here apart from that. At the same time, of course, these are all medias and all everything. So this is how generally it will be. Now I'm just going to create a project first. So whatever the project creations I'm doing and all, based on that, whatever the relevant informations to be prepared and how these relevancies and all everything will be prepared here accordingly. This is how generally this Balsamic is a tool which is widely used across industries will be used here. So creation of project is also essentially required. As I mentioned you have to create a project. It depends on the kind of project what is that you are going to do, because you may be creating a project for different wireframes and all that. You may be required different wireframes to be created. Whatever the wireframes do we have and all everything that we have to create here accordingly. So wireframes and mockups and all everything can be created here. That's what we need to do. So I'm just creating my first project here, so that right from the first project onwards, we will be working here. Now here, your first project, this is what I was just creating. I'm creating a first project so that you will be understood more, right? So this is how generally the project is created, right? Now, when you want to create, whenever we have created a project, whenever we are working on it, we have to understand what kind of forms to be prepared. For example, being a business analyst team, you want to prepare a form, right? So for example, you want to prepare a form which is something relating to a page where you require some login kind of stuff, right? So whatever the login related stuff and all everything, if you require, let's say for example, whatever the login page is required, whatever the login related information is something essentially needed to understand it, all these things can be prepared here accordingly, right? So whatever the login pages and all everything can be prepared here apart. So here there is an option where you can create a group name for this, right? So here group names can be created. So based upon the information, what is that we have? For example, group name called, um, I'm just mentioning as banking application. Okay. For example, banking application, right? So banking application is a page I have, name I have given for this, wherein if you want to extend the sizes and all everything, these sizes can be extended like this. You always have an option where you can extend the applications here. This is how generally these extensions of the applications which can be taken into an account, right? So this is in banking application, where for example, if I want to create a circle button, right? So circle button may be required for n different reasons, whatever the reasons it could be. Maybe for initially to start with, right? For example, start is what I'm going to do. Start is what I am going to do here. So whatever the start button you have and all everything for this banking application, this start button was used. At the same time, if you want to choose any kind of colors, whatever the color picker and all everything, this color picker you can see here, right? So whatever the relevant colors and all everything, so these colors can be used. So as of now, as far as the application itself is concerned, we don't require any kind of color pickers, all that. At the same time, for example, if you want to mention the date, right? So mentioning of the date for a particular application, wherein you want to mention here. For example, 01, 04, 05, and 2010, right? So this is what the date I was given, right? So this is the date I have given, and do remember this is the date I have given based on month, date, and year, right? That's how you have to see. 01 is the first month, date dd is date, 05 it is 2010, right? So this is what generally the date which was created on the banking application, wherein the start button and all everything was given here accordingly. At the same time, apart from that, we need to have an option where we have to understand where if you want to create any kind of sliders and all everything, these sliders can also be used here accordingly. Whatever the sliders do we have and all everything, so these sliders can be used here. So whatever the required sliders you want to here, because for example if there is a page extension we have, right, so the page is so long, right, so depends on the kind of slide exceptions what is that we are going to do. Whatever the slider extensions and all everything is what we want to see. It's what generally the slider applications and all everything is that, right? So this is where generally the sliders and all everything are being used here, right? So this is where generally the sliders and all everything is being used. So this is how generally the sliders can be. Means if the project page, whatever the page we have created, for example, if the project page was more broader, all that stuff. So these project pages and all everything will be created here accordingly. This is where generally this sliders and all everything are being used so that you can slide it, right? So slide it according to the adjustments what is that we require, whatever the sliders and all everything is required, so those sliders can be done here accordingly. Depends on the kind of page what is that we have created, because there will be some lot of information which is available sometimes where we have to mention these informations according to the requirement what we have. Now, for example, for this banking application, let's say, for example, if you want to create any kind of icons, right? So, for example, any kind of icons in reference to the number or something like those numbers and all, everything can be given here. At the same time, if you want to create any kind of layouts, for example, if there is a taskbar which wants to create, or if you want to create any kind of scroll bars, for example, scroll whatever the bar I have created here, this is for the page extension, but whereas whatever the scroll bars I was mentioning here, these scroll bars and all everything for top to down, top to down. So this is how generally this scroll bar is what we have prepared here, where here is an extension which can be done, right? So we can do this extension like this, whatever the related extension and the relevant extensions do we have. So these extensions can be done here accordingly, right? So this is how generally this can be used, right? So this is what it is. Next, at the same time, if you want to create any kind of buttons, for example, for this page, you want to write any kind of buttons or something like, so here is a button option where we can create this button option here. For example, button for like, so for example, home page, right? So home page we are creating. Home page is what we are creating here. So apart from the home page, we are even creating home button is what we are creating. After that, we are mentioning about banking application I'm talking about, right? So home button, at the same time options. If it's a regular application and all, everything home button, about us, services, all these will be there. But as it's a banking application and all, home button will be there. At the same time, for example, the kind of services they were offering, whatever the services, whatever they are offering and all, those services can be mentioned here apart. That is one thing can be done. At the same time, whatever the contact details can be mentioned here, right? So contact, of course, contact details can be given later in point of time. Contact details can be given later. Services, and this kind of apart from the services and all, we can provide an option for login, right? So login is what I was mentioning here in here itself. So before the login, I'm just giving an option called sign up. Normally this can be created anywhere here apart, right? So sign up, login, contact details, right? So all these informations can be prepared here accordingly. So this is depending on the kind of page what is that we are creating and how is that we have created, in what way we have created, and whatever the pages do we have. All these things is what we have to see here when you are talking about this contact page, sign up pages and all that. So this is how generally this home pages and all everything are being used for. Now, let me put you this here. I'm putting the start button here, right? So services and all everything, these services page and all everything, these pages can be created. Wherein, if you want, we can give some space in regard to that. Space can be given even. So a space can be given here. Whatever the space related and relevant spaces and all everything, those spaces can be created. right? So whatever the related spaces and all, so those spaces can be created, and whatever the options do we have and all, so those options can be given here apart, right? So if you want to align something like this, you can align home button, services, sign up button, all that. So this is how you can see, right? So this is how you can see it. At the same time, if you want to create any kind of accordances and all that, right? For example, if you want to write down the items and all, right? So whatever the related items and all, items can be mentioned here. For example, let's say current services. Apart from the current services, even savings related stuff can be there. At the same time, if it is something relating to savings and all, right? So savings option is there. At the same time, we are even mentioning about in this savings, uh, I can create savings account. Here I am mentioning deposits, right? So this is what it was giving, right? So deposits is what I am giving here, right? So this is how generally the current is what we can create. So this is how generally the creation of current pages, whatever is something related and relevant, uh, is what we have to create, right? So whatever the uh, creation of the pages and all everything is what we have to do. So this is how generally this creation of pages and all everything. So we can create whatever the options do we have, and how are we doing it, in for what way you are doing it. So what are the options do we require to make it perform more better is what we have to see. So when we are right, so this is where generally this current savings, whatever the savings accounts, deposits, and all everything. So these deposits and all everything can be seen here accordingly. This is how generally it can be created. Even it could be a current account, could be a savings account, right? So whatever the deposits we have, right? So savings account, deposit, savings, all these things can be mentioned here accordingly. Is what generally we do here. At the same time, for example, if there is any kind of comments to be written and all everything, we can written. But as far as this banking application itself is concerned, we don't require any kind of these markups and all everything are required. So we don't do that. At the same time, for example, if you want to put any kind of image, right? So let's say, for example, any image relating to an application called XYZ. I'm just mentioning it as XYZ, right? So I'm not writing anything here, any image to be created, so those images and all in reference to the application of the existing one, so where these images and all everything can be created here. Like for example, there is an option where if you want to put this image here, whatever the related and relevant images and all everything can be copied here. Now I am just copying some image, right? So not exactly the same, but something whatever, for example, this is what the image I want to open, right? So this image, whatever the image and all everything, so these images can be copied here accordingly. And whatever I'm just this image and all everything relating to this application image I'm talking about, right? So these application image can be upgraded like this, right? So these images we can copy, and these images we can post here, right? So this is how generally, right? For example, right, so this is an image, let's say, right? So project company banking related application image and all, so these image can be kept here apart, right? This is one thing which can be done, right? So these images and all everything can be given here. That is one thing which can be done here. Next, for example, if there is a playbacks and all everything, so as far as the banking application itself is concerned, we don't require and we don't have any kind of playbacks to be made, so that hence I am not mentioning any playbacks or something of that sort. At the same time, if there is any kind of symbols to be made or something, that can be written here. At the same time, even for example, if you want to mention any kind of text message or something like that, can be given here. At the same time, I'm going to add you here. There is an option called search box where I was mentioning the search box here. Okay, search box, either you can put it on top. I am just giving you on top here. Okay, search box. So search is what the option I'm giving, because if you want to add any kind of search to the application wherein to connect with, or wherein you want to move into the next level and all, so this search button is being used for that purpose. That's what generally the search button and all everything are used here. Right, so these search buttons and all everything are being used here. At the same time, if there is any kind of number stepper and all everything, so this number stepper can be used. That is one thing which can be used, but as of now we don't require to use some search button and all that stuff. Or else, for example, if there is any kind of text to be written, for example, text welcome to XYZ, right? For example, if there is any kind of text message to be given, right? So on the page, whatever the page we have, so if you want to write down any information relating to here, right? So welcome text widget. We are happy to serve you all the time as we are. I'm just writing some information because in this page, whatever the related information on the whole page is there, that information I'm writing. I'm writing some information, not exactly the same. Okay. We are happy to serve you all the time as we are one of the leading banking and financial services company, provide services to individuals, corporates, institutions, and industries. Right? So industries, right? So this is what the information I have written here, right? So if you want, we can cut sort that information according to the requirement what we have, all that. Whatever the related information, whatever the required information and all, that required information can be extended, right? Services company, right? Services company I can give only, right? Right, so this is what generally we have written here, right? This is what I have written here. At the same time, some text was mentioned here. Some text was mentioned. At the same time, you can mention here. Please reach out us 24/7 about the services we offer. Okay. That's what we have given. So this is what generally the information we have given here. At the same time, if there is any kind of link to be updated, right? So any kind of link bars or something like these link bars can be updated here, right? So either home products, Either here link bar can be updated here. At the same time, you can add these services also. Depends on the kind of requirement what we have and all. Whatever the related and whatever the related information and all everything. So that also can be used here. So it is that is completely depends on the requirements what we have, all that stuff. Next is there is, for example, any kind of data grid, right? For example, if there is any kind of data grid, something like this, I'll be showing you. Yeah. For example, if there is any kind of data grid to be named, right? So any data grid related information. So so this is all basically for a business analyst because to show right how the page looks like, right? Color combinations, right? So that even development team or at the same time user interface designers and all, even user interface designers can also be prepared. So according to the requirements what they have and all everything. So those details can be kept and as well as prepared here accordingly. The kind of information what is that we require. So these informations can be prepared here when and wherever it is needed. So this is how generally this page, whatever the page you can see, whatever the banking application or a sample page, whatever we have created, so that can be created. At the same time, if you want to create any icon names or something like the icon names and all everything can also be used here. Right. So icon names and all everything can be used here. Or else if you want to use any kind of symbols as I mentioned you, these are the symbols we use. So this is how generally the page which generally when we talk about this Balsamic page and all everything we can use. So this is for a banking application. Whatever I was mentioning you and whatever I have shown you, it's all about the banking application, whatever we have created. Next, I'm just adding few more, okay, because this is what the page we have created, which I'm aligning here as well. Yeah, here I'm aligning all that information, whatever is related and all I'm mentioning. At the same time, progress bars and all everything not required. So these are all the buttons. These are all the buttons are there. Let me explain you these buttons. This is for the accommodation purpose, which is being used here. These are the alert boxes. Alert boxes are not required. So it depends on the kind of application, what is that we are creating, the type of application, the kind of application, what is that we use. These services and all everything will vary. It will not remain same and constant all the time. So these services may vary from time to time. It will not be the same. Sometimes the services may get extended to a next level. So whatever is related that can be used. At the same time, for example, if you want to put any kind of logos or if you want to create any kind of block texts, right? So all these things can be used. So in reference to the all part I'm talking about. If these are the options especially used for Android related because there are some mobile applications we create even sometimes mobile applications we are creating what are the mobile related applications and all everything will be created. So whenever we are creating the mobile applications and how these mobile applications looks like, right, at the same time data pickers, circle buttons and all everything, even for Android applications this can be created with. Along with that, so there is an option called assets where if you want to add any kind of assets to be existing stuff can be. Next, this is all something relating to the graphs, all that stuff. Because if you want to present something, where if you want to create any kind of bar charts, columns, chart lines, right? So if you want to create any kind of pie charts, all that. So these options we can use. What are the options do we have in reality? These options can be used here. Along with this, here are the buttons, some of the buttons which are available as in told you. These are the common buttons. Please do remember when we are working on Balsamic, whatever the buttons I am showing you, these buttons are available from time to time. Whatever the application we are developing, the kind of application it has. Yeah. So whatever the application we have, all that stuff. So these buttons and all everything will be as it is, right? So because depends on the type of application, these buttons and all everything will be used. So this is a continuous process which normally we follow in order to make this application more conveniently better for all the time. Next is that common. So these are the common buttons. But these buttons and commons we use this mainly because every application, whatever the application we are using, whatever the pages, wireframes, and mockups and all everything we are creating. So these pages and all everything are common. So this is not something different from one to another. It will not. It will be remain same and it will remain constant all the time. Next, along with that, containers. If there is any kind of container related applications we are creating, so these container related applications also can be created here along with it. That is one more thing which can be done. Or else if you want to create any kind of forms, or if you want to create any kind of layouts, or at the same time if you want to create any kind of text or symbols, right? So all these things we can use. So it's completely depend on the kind of information what is that we require, the amount of work what is that we are doing, all that. So all these things will be used. This is how this can be extended. Yeah, this is how it can be extended. Yeah, whatever the related information and all, so this can be extended and this can be created here. So this is how generally this banking application is what we create, right? So whatever you can see here and whatever the application I have created, so this is what generally this application will be created. At the same time, if you want to copy this or if you want to delete any kind of field sets, that we can do, but that is not something, excuse me, but that is not something required, because when we are creating banking applications, all these kind of applications, that sort of information is not essentially needed, wherein it was not something really important for us to do. Or else if you want to create any kind of new wireframes and all, we have an option, whatever the required and related mainframe related wireframes and all, everything, so those wireframes can be created once for all. Whatever it depends on the kind of positions. Even for example, if you want to edit any kind of field sets in reference to the positions or sizes, or if you want to add any kind of layers to the existing application, or else it could be some color combinations, right? So for example, a color combination, if you want to change, right? So if you want to change any kind of color combinations to the existing way, so these color combinations can also be changed, depends on the kind of color we want. At the same time, this even, so we can see this shadeds and all that, right? Whatever the related shadeds, relevant shadeds and all, everything. So this shaded, yeah. So this is how generally the shades, all these things can be. At the same time, this is for a welcome notes. Of course, that is not something really important to understand. So this is how generally a banking application, whatever I have shown you, the application, what is that I have created so far, and whatever the application I have created in reference to the banking application is what I have shown you here. This is how generally a project, especially for the role of business analyst majorly, at the same time user interface designers, because normally in application development this will be used by two people. One is business analyst, second is UI designers, UI and UX designers. So business analyst for what reason? For example, if you are developing a banking application where there are some reference documents which was got by the customer, where you want to explain those reference documents and all, everything to the team, how the page looks like, all that stuff. So for that, what is it required? So it is essentially required, it is essentially important for us to maintain, right? So whatever that we are going to maintain and when are we going to maintain, that information we have to update here according to the requirement what we have, whatever the updations and all, everything we have to update. That's what generally we do here, right? So this is for this purpose generally, because if you want to visualize some information like wireframes and mockups, this is how usually we do. And the second role was UI and UX designers, like user interface and user experience designers. User interface and user experience designers are the people who will be used this majorly for different reasons, because apart from development team in real environment in application development, there will be some user interface and user experience designers will also be available. So these people's major responsibility and as well as these people's major role is to advise user experiences, to create some user experiences, especially when you are working on travel applications or when you are working on what we call not only travel applications, when you are working on e-commerce applications and all, they require some grandeur, because especially there are two kinds. One is commercial applications, second is inside applications, business applications. So business applications for activity purpose and all, they don't require much grandeur, because options are more important for them, and whatever the options and where are the options putting all that, so this is important to them. But whereas when you go with the when you are comparing this with other people, for example, if this you are comparing this with what we called this you are comparing with the commercial applications, something like e-commerce related applications, their expectations are different, because the kind of the e-commerce domain, they are looking for the kind of grandeur they require. All these will be varied. This will not be the remain same and constant all the time. So this will be varied from uh, person to person. This will be varied, depends on the kind of application it was, the kind of type of application it was. So whatever the graduates and all everything were essentially required, and those were essentially important. So it depends on the application to application, the type of application it was. So whatever the changes are we making and all everything, we can do here accordingly. So this is how generally two different roles. One is business analyst will be used to prepare wireframes and mockups. At the same time, even this will be used even by the people who are user interface and user experience designers. Sometimes developers will do this job. Developers, whoever the developers we have, so those developers and all, everybody will do this job. Apart from the developers, the other people is even user interface designers. Those people will post it as separate. Usually in some organizations, user interface designers will be as separate. Those user interface designers will make you to understand the kind of application what we are preparing, how are we preparing, in what way it is essentially needed. So they'll be preparing that. Apart from the remaining ones, all that stuff. This is how generally a balsamic is being used, especially for business analyst team as well as user interface designers, all these people, right? So this is how it is. Now this is one example, right? Whatever the example I'm showing you, this is one example. This is what generally the banking example it was, and this banking example is, this is how generally this banking example is being looks like, right? So this is one thing. Next, if you want to create any kind of wireframes and mockups and all, we can create, right? So these are the wireframes, whatever we have created and all, everything this we are created here. Or else if there is any kind of new wireframes to create, even new wireframes can also be created. That depends on the requirement to requirement, it will get varied. It will not remain same and constant, because this is a application I have created. This is a welcome application I have created. Next, at the same time, if you want to create any kind of website kind of stuff, right? So website samples, or if you want to create any kind of mobile related applications, or else if you want to create any kind of customization, so something like something customization kind of stuffs, or if you want to do any kind of sharing related applications and all. So there are different templates are available, especially in Balsamic. The advantage is that we can create wireframes and mockups according to the requirement what we have, according to the requirement what we have here. So even whatever the application I have created, a banking application. Apart from banking application, now if you can see here, this is the application which I am showing you. Yeah, so this is an application which I am showing you. This application is entirely an website sample application, right? So website sample application, this will be. You can here you can give the website name, right? So at the same time we can give whatever the informations which are relevant and important, right? So all these informations can be given, right? So these website samples and all everything can be created. Along with that, for example, if you want to create any kind of mobile sample applications, any mobile sample applications, whatever is related and required. So, for example, this mobile application we are developing, how the mobile page looks like, right? How the screen should looks like, how the combinations looks like, right? So, for example, first name, right? So, let's say I'm just mentioning it as hi. Okay, I'm not doing it, right? So, for example, right, so in the mobile application, I just first name is hi, right? So name it as hi. I've just mentioned it in a funny manner, right? So not so important. Right here, last name, right? Rose, right? So I've just given, right? Hi Rose, right? Now brand. What kind of brand is this? For example, is this Samsung, right? So this is the brand we are using, right? So what kind of model? Hmm, maybe some XYZ, right? I'm just mentioning it as 123, right? So 123 is the brand model I have given. At the same time, license plate, something like this, some number has given was given here. Next, basic type of insurances, regulatory premium and all. So that is a different thing altogether. So this is how generally this mobile type, new policy, right? For example, uh, mobile page, right? I'm just mentioning it as mobile page. Okay, here in this mobile page is what I was mentioned here, and I have given some click buttons, all that. So this is how generally the mobile page was created, right? First name, last name, brand, model, right? License plate, insurance types, all that, right? So this is how generally the mobile apps was created. At the same time, there is an option where if you want to create any kind of desktop applications and all, even desktop applications can also be created. Along with that, if, for example, if there is any kind of information where we want to create some getting around like back to the projects, or if you want to add some new wireframes, or if you want to create any kind of UX libraries, right? So user interface libraries, UI libraries means user interface libraries. All these informations can be seen. At the same time, we have an option where we can create more resources, whatever the related and relevant and referred resources and all. So these resources you can see. These are the resources and all everything. These resources and all everything can be seen here according to the requirement what we have. All that stuff. This is how generally these resources and all everything are being used. So yeah, new wireframe one. This is what the welcome application which was created. If you want to create a new wireframe here, we can create one more. At the same time, any website samples and all everything. Even websites creation can also be made, because whatever the related websites we are creating, how are we creating the websites? In what way these websites are more useful and relevant to us, and how these websites can be useful for the people to make it more convenient and better. All this we can see. At the same time, if you want to see any kind of mobile or desktop, right? So whatever the mobile or desktop related stuff, if you want, that also can be mentioned here. At the same time, if you want to add any kind of add UI controls or customizations, right? So these customizations, mobile controls, all these we can use. So this is how generally the Balsamic majorly it's being used. So whatever the application I have created, a welcome application called banking. This is what the whole scenario is all about. The next we are going to create one more wireframe which is as separate, which is essentially important. And what are these wireframes to be prepared? How, and we are going to create one more application, because here we have created only banking application for an example purpose. Like this couple of applications for a couple of different reasons. It's not only for a particular reason we are preparing. These applications we are creating for different reasons. Whatever the reasons, whatever the projects we have and all everything. So different wireframes can be created. At the same time, if you want to create any kind of website samples, that also can be created here. At the same time, even mobile desktop applications and all these things will be used one and all, right? So this is the first application which I have created. This is how it is.